Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
And I'm so excited today. You're one of those people I've always felt that you're very cool. Like, I know you through a friend. Uh, I've attended one of your workshops and I was so impressed by the way you handle things and way you passionately speak about the things that you believe in. So I thought you were the perfect guest for this podcast. And I'll tell you the topic that we're going to cover today. For me, it's very important. Because as a child, I always questioned things, but I could never question it publicly. Then eventually I started accepting things for what they are. But later, as I started to read things or started listening to podcasts or other things, publications, then I realized that this is actually a problem and I'm the only one, who feels that way. So you're the one who's invested so many years in this field. So I thought you're the perfect guest to speak about gender rights, gender equality, and inequality, and all those important things. So yeah.
I'm excited. Yes, I am because yeah, I'm talking about all of these things at my workplace with my colleagues and friends all together. But it's always good to
Mhm.
refresh it, have a basic understanding, start from the basics all together. So yes, I'm excited too.
Yes. So,
But
like you said,
yeah,
starting from basics.
okay.
So,
So
can we talk about what is gender? Because people usually they confuse sex with gender. So, why don't you think as if you're explaining to a 6 year old what is the difference between sex and gender and what gender is basically?
So basically, as whenever a baby is born, the first thing we start with doctor assigning a sex or
Hmm.
the gender to a baby. So usually doctor will say it's a boy or it's a girl based on their genitalia, external genitalia, and according to that, slowly we start developing everything. So for example, if you have a
Hmm.
baby, okay, the baby is born, you are bringing the baby home based on that baby's gender, the toys
Hmm.
that baby play will be playing with, the color of the clothes, the color of arrangement of the rooms, or the things assigning will be based on that baby's sex at the birth. Okay, in that way we slowly start to, because again baby at the birth, it's blank slate, it is developing something consciously, unconsciously, subconsciously, everything surrounding it. So whatever happens around it, they will just start to absorb it. So, according to the baby, the environment is to be set from the first second of the baby is born. Even I think sometimes even before we start planning, like if it is a girl, what name I'm planning to give for a girl child or a boy child in that sense, and the toys babies play with. If it is a girl child, and let's say there is a 2-year-old girl child and you're going for a birthday party of that child, you'll be thinking first thing. Even I sometimes end up doing that. That first thing comes to your mind as a gift is will be a Barbie doll with all those attires and multiple accessories, or if it is a 2-year-old boy, will be a
Hmm.
car or ball in that sense. So according to that, so basically gender is a social construct and constituted idea. Basically constructed, it has been constructed many years back. Somebody, not somebody, a group of people have assigned them and constituted, that has been changed over the period of time. So as we say, no, time ke sath chalna hota hai, the gender also walks along with the time. So like right now the time changes as technology changes, the gender idea slightly varies altogether. So that's gender. Sex is basically a biological criteria of the body that baby is born with. Again, there is a huge debate right now going on. Initially, it was used to define sex and gender both together. That just because of my external genitalia or vagina, I'll be assigned as
Hmm.
female at the birth. But there are some people after the birth realizes, okay, they have they have internal male organs or the hormone levels which are of males, which is not explained or which are not been seen until very late of their life. So that's something that is going on, but based on their external genitalia, that the sex is defined, and based on that, the gender has been assigned altogether. Again, I'm giving you very basic and subtle
Hmm.
examples, and again, the whole part starts from there. So yeah, that's sex, the socially constructed and constituted
Hmm.
idea.
So we are talking about gender and how it is socially defined. Basically, it's not a medical
Yeah.
concept. It's not a biological concept. So, like you said about the gifting
Yes.
part. So, since you're a 2 year old girl child, you're told that this is a doll and you need to take care of her, make her hair or maybe knit something to for her to
Yeah.
wear. And Boys are told, okay, be athletic, go out and play, work harder, do physically.
And interestingly, all of these things, wherever you go, it works the same way. Like just you mentioned about school sports.
Yeah.
Just a simple example, like every day, if the board has to be decorated or something has to be written or design something, the work will automatically go towards girls as if they have by birth beautiful handwriting or something design accent. And just in case if you want to shift some furniture or you want help with that lifting heavy weights or something, that will go to boys. Even whether the boys are like 6 years 7 years, they might not have the physical capacity to lift it, doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Instead of girl, it will go to boys. Similarly, the text, I remember, so one research we did on masculinity, we actually looked into grammar, into things that we start studying. So I studied in vernacular medium, Marathi medium, and in that grammar itself, the noun, verbs, proverbs are used, or the statements used to describe were like this, like
Hmm.
Sita goes to buy vegetables, or Sita cuts vegetables, Sita cooks food, or boy go to play, something like that, which defines their gender roles even within the grammar, which you starts like 4 years, 5 years of like fourth or fifth standard of
Hmm.
your education. And that whichever institute you go, that social ideas have been reinforced over and over again. So that's when we say it's constituted, it's like that. So it may be family, education, even media for that matter. The movies we saw automatically enforce that's the same idea going on, even the advertisements. So yeah, exactly that way it goes
Like
on.
even you go to corporate workplaces, if there's a meeting, automatically everyone will ask a girl to write the notes, minutes of the meeting. You always see her like in a secretarial role, even though she's like in an executive role. It's so everyone
Exactly.
does this thing, and no one thinks it's wrong or right. you know. Or if you want to order
And
food,
interest.
the girl will be asked, "अरे order कर देना खाना सबके लिए," you know.
Exactly. And interestingly, science, so I've been reading a lot. So my education has been in science, and I've been reading a lot in terms of how gender has been playing assigned a role. So, interestingly, there is a book on neuroscience and how neurosurgery or the brain has been assigned. So, initial research or the hypothesis has been said that how women's brain are smaller in proportion to men's brain, and they initially were only focusing on proving that just because her brain is smaller, she's not able to take all those responsibility that men are supposed to take. So even how that has been, so when we say science, it's actually a neutral field in that sense,
Yeah.
but again that has been set by people who have patriarchal society, have lived in patriarchal society. So those ideas are perpetuated in the same field altogether. So right now the way we see it's completely different than it should be. Exactly.
So, like you said, Raj, you were studying science. Like you actually worked as a professor for a few years. So, what was your motivation to leave that conventional route and, work in this field full time and making such a great contribution to make this change at a root level? What was the time you realized that you are supposed to be here and doing this thing?
I think it took me many years to realize, I wouldn't say realize, but yeah, to get on this field. So I think I was part of this field or studying or understanding the sector since my college days. So when I was an undergraduate student, I used to be part of different organizations, going, being an intern, volunteer work, doing research for that matter. But so I was part of Pukar organization, and I did two research, group research with them. One was with indigenous people and how their perspective towards nature is changing with this city life going on. And the second one was masculinity, that how masculinity has been built in around boys of Mumbai and what are the factors assigning.
Mhm.
So I think I was active since then, and I was like, all of these things I've been learning, but side by side, my education, my undergraduate, my postgraduate was going on. I think I've always been this social and science seesaw going on. So I think initially after my masters, I started working with Pukar itself on another project, and then again I went to Pune for my net examinations. I came back, then I started teaching, and again after teaching I joined here. I think it was just back and forth, but at the same time I was, even within I was teaching, I was doing a lot of different projects on part-time basis or on volunteer basis on this thing. I think it's not about what time it took me to get in the field or get the vocabulary. So there are like 2 points to understand here. Like as a kid, you always realize as a girl you have been treated a little different. Okay, so I have a brother, and usually, obviously, my parents made sure that it has been equal, and whatever they think it is discriminatory, they try to avoid it between us. But there are subtle things that you it goes and you quickly, realizes, irrespective whether it's just parents or friends and time. At that time, you just get irritated, like why it's with me, why I've been stopped doing a particular activity, why not this way, why not that way. You have n number of questions, but you don't get any answers. So I think that started from very early stage, and I was kind of a rebel kid, asking questions a lot. I think when I started getting into Pukar and other activities, I started getting a vocabulary for this thing.
Mm.
Started understanding that there are terminologies. You are not the only one who is experiencing this. There are all the women on different levels based on their socioeconomic group, basically their caste, class, race, urban, rural background. Based on that, they also experience gender differently. And slowly, I was drawn. Yeah, I think that was something which was holding me all together. So that started from there. But after you get the vocabulary, after you start actually unlearning the processes, so it's been a journey for me to unlearn altogether. Even now, I'm doing the same. So I won't say that I'm working. That means I've mastered all of those things. Still, every day there is something, some new question comes, and I was like, damn, I've understood it all wrong, had to be changed, and I don't know where it is going to change or how it's going to change. So I think, yeah, that was initiation and how it started. So yeah, I think
Yeah, that's interesting.
that
But
was the overall thing.
we all are unlearning and learning these concepts now. Slowly, everyone's doing it, like on their part, on whatever scale it is. But you are someone who actually went on and then did a diploma. First in India, I think Nirmala Niketan, you did one diploma and then you went abroad. In Amsterdam, you studied how to become, like, you actually became a gender trainer. So, what was that exactly?
Yeah, okay. So Nirmala Niketan course was actually when I was in Pukar.
Hmm.
At that time, I was, kind of, I had that thing, while working, I need to have some sort of a course going on which will have support me in my CV or something. And at that time, I was working with teenage kids on JTD. So that was on menstruation and gender violence and that stuff. So the Nirmala Niketan diploma was on child rights and child
Right.
protection. So we were trying to understand that how it has been working, how to work with kids. Most probably, when we say child, it would be less, not teenager, less than 13, 12 years old, but how to work with them, what are the psychological barriers we need to understand, and what are their rights, and how we need to see them, and all of those things. That was I was studying. So I think that was one thing. At the PDPGD course, that was professional development program for gender trainers.
Yeah.
So that course is actually for someone who is already a gender trainer, who's been working in the field for, like, let's say 3 years or 4 5 years now. And based on their understanding, this is like a kind of advanced course.
Mhm.
So basically this course is kind of asking us, I'm using the word asking in a very neutral way, but that was very serious thing. Like, all my bases has been questioned, and I'm like, it took me by shock. I was like, अब क्या आगे क्या करना है? I have no idea where to start with if everything is not right what I was doing. So that PDPGT course was basically to question the basis of what we were thinking and how it was going, and not just looking at gender as in gender.
Mhm.
So let's say, I mentioned it very slightly even now, that when we say gender, it comes only as women and man.
Right.
Okay, so inequalities between both of them. But what about transgenders?
Exactly.
What about the whole LGBTQI communities, different gender and gender and sexual identities and orientations?
Mhm.
How are we looking at that? When you talk about gender, it actually comes as a binary, only men and women. But in this course, we were actually trying to understand that it's not just this binary which is working, it's how the social construct. So let's say, as we said, no, socially constructed.
Mhm.
So girls should be like this and boys should be like this. Anybody who is even slightly away from that box will be started, you start bullying them, or harassing them. If a boy
True.
walks like a girl, so you start calling them by names, you start doing different things which is seriously humiliating for them in that sense. And then we start having this third gender criteria. But why not to understand what their orientations to start with? So to widen that thing, gender. And secondly, what and how their background, socioeconomic background. When I say social is social and economic. So based on my caste, a lot of things define. If I come from a dominant caste background, so a lot of things comes as a privilege for me.
Mhm.
And as a woman of dominant caste, I'll be experiencing gender differently than a woman of oppressed caste. At the same time, class matters a lot. If my family has a money backup, not say let's not say about dominant classes in the elite ones, but at least upper middle class who has money, in that sense, I don't have to worry about daily food. As my, if my parents are daily wage workers,
Mhm.
then my gender will be affecting me differently altogether. And we have to see that intersectionality all the time, because whenever we start seeing gender, or let's say caste, we always see those things in different boxes. Let me work on caste, I'm very interested to work on caste. Or let me work on gender, I'm interested to work in gender. But it's not as simple to see as like different boxes altogether, because all of these things matters at the same time. Let's say if there is a woman with disability,
Mhm.
more locomotive disability, her experience of gender will be completely different than a woman without disability. So I think that course, I think initially also we had some ideas working with people, but that course actually enabled us to think a lot. So I went to Amsterdam in August. That was like a last third module of ours, which was 1 week. But before that, we had 5 months, 2 modules, online classes.
Mhm.
We had like heavy readings, starting from basic, questioning everything in that sense. And it's very interesting to see how things has been looked a little differently. Even the section gender that we were talking
Yeah.
about, at currently I am actually talking to multiple people from different sexual and gender identities to understand how sex and gender is for them, because we are developing a training manual currently. And for that we need our understanding, because as a as a heterosexual cisgender, I never experienced those things in my entire life. So for me, I might take it as directly, very normal for me.
Mhm.
I might not even able to understand. So I think that course actually helped me to even take a note that you might not be exposed to that sort of discriminations altogether, and we need to able to unlearn, relearn. But more than that, we need to have a open space to understand. A lot of time it happens. So I think okay, in terms of education and in terms of my job and my work things, I've learned a lot. But I think one thing I learned which was so striking, and it took me a little while, I think I'm getting there. So one thing is, right now I'm in my 30s. So people are like, at this age you should master everything. अभी सिर्फ काम करना है, you should get promotions and you want to excel in the field. There is nothing that you know is wrong. You just have to learn new things. There's nothing that you are wrong about. But that course told me, like, the way it was going is, you're never right. There might be a lot of things that you're taking which might be right for you, but now it not might not be right for the next person standing next to you.
Yeah.
Like, so that way I think that ego process also going on, in that sense that okay, fine, I'm not always right, I need to stop, pause, and understand for myself. So I think it was internal journey on thought process, but at the same time it was on work process, how things are going on. So I think those both. I think Nirmala Niketan, one major thing that was, so Nirmala Niketan course happened when, just after my masters, when I was working with Puka, that was in 2016.
Mhm.
And at that time, as part of my field work, I was working with one organization in red light area of Mumbai, Kamathipura.
Right.
And that organization was working with children of sex workers. So how to, take care of them and how to go forward with that. So as part of that, I was appointed there, and I was spending a lot of time in Kamatipura and their organization in that time. I think one thing, just before that, there was a huge debate going on that whether the sex work should be legalized or not, or the sex workers should be called sex workers or
Okay.
prostitute. What is the right word and how? And I think I was also a part of discussions to just say my, like, okay, fine, this should be there, that should be there. But when I first time went to Kamatipura, I think I was like somewhere 23, 22, 23 years old. I went there. I could not lift my eyes and look at them straight ahead.
Mhm.
And it was evening time. I was going along with their the organization people. They were introducing me with the people and how their work goes on and all of that. I think one point for me, because I never had that exposure, I never spoke to any one of them. And we were standing there, we are just saying, I was so scared. One, I was scared for myself that, it's a red light area, how people will be seeing me, viewing me. At the same time, how, and like my own safety, but at the same time, I have no exposure to this area of Mumbai, which has been central Mumbai as part of it. Like I'm going there on and off, but never at that particular area. So I think that questioned me a lot. I think slowly my understanding to talking, that sensitivity gets there. It's not very easy. It's completely different than sitting in a AC office and
Right.
discussing, oh, this should be there, it's good for them, it should be there. But we never actually go to them, we don't never talk to them and understand from their side what do they really want. Is it really important for them to have a title of sex work,
Mm.
or people should giving a same equal respect towards them as a human being to start with? So I think that was something that caused it. But I think, yeah, that was also helpful in my studies, my work, and all of those parts. So I think, yeah, that was like two different things.
Yeah. In talking to you, so many experiences you're sharing, it's actually making me think now, like how much I don't know at my level. But now moving on to your current work, you're working with an organization called Visthar, which is an NGO situated in Bangalore, right? So you're working in
Yeah,
rural Karnataka and some projects at an international level also. So can you take us through what
yeah.
exactly you do in Vistar and what projects you're currently involved in?
Okay. So Vistar is actually registered as trust, and that's registered since 1989.
Yeah.
So it's been now 33 years as the
Yeah.
organization itself. Vistar works different level, different things are there, but the work I am involved in, I'll elaborate that a little
Sure.
bit more. So currently I'm in Bangalore. The main campus of Vistar is in Bangalore. Another campus we started, I think, 15 years back in North Karnataka, Koppal district
Mm.
of North Karnataka. That's a rural area where we are working. So currently, my role involved in here is about, first of all, gender trainings. So we get a lot of gender trainings and to facilitate them and conduct them. That is one. But at the same time, preparing gender training manuals. So that also comes as a part. So basically, we are preparing sessions and stuff for the particular syllabus. Let's say it's a syllabus for math students. So we'll be preparing according to which standard it is, how it has to be done. So that the way module development, that is one of the part. So that comes as a gender training part. Second
Let me
part,
interrupt
I
you.
think in
What
North
actually
Karnataka,
is in the
yeah.
syllabus or a manual? Like, what do you include in that?
Okay, so it depends upon different things. Right now, we are looking how to incorporate gender. I think one thing, social development goals or sustainability development goal (SDGs) that we are talking about, gender equality has been one part of it, and after that, it was looking at in multiple levels. So right now, people are really trying to understand gender within their work thing. So
Right.
it might be garment workers, it might be laborers, or it might be children organizations which are working. They want to understand the gender layer of it. So I think, let's say one of the gender training manuals that we did was for garment factory or garment workers. So the organization that we were associated with, it's an international
Okay.
organization, Fairway. They look at the proper rules or rights of the laborers who are working as garment workers in that
Mhm.
sector. So in them, along with them, along with their rights as a garment workers or as a worker laborer itself, they were also trying to understand how gender impacts it differently. As a person who is a man
Mm.
garment worker and a woman garment worker,
Mm.
or the experiences of women in the garment factories would be completely different. So how gender plays a role, so we were developing one on that. Second thing is also about children. Children Beliefs is one of the organization which works in South India,
Okay.
in different areas with teenage children, and they have like a lot of groups and sanghas where they work with them. So it's basically creating awareness, talking about their identity. So they wanted to understand gender as well, because teenage is such an age where all your hormonal changes are also happening, but at the same time your identity as a girl or as a boy, or that sometimes it happens like my body is of female, but I do identify myself as a man or as a boy. So why that? And there is no questions and altogether that. So, and also at the same time, I think this is also the age where we get all sorts of influence from media. Like I want to be like that hero or heroine in that sense. So I think that manual incorporated all of these factors of identity, of gender plays a role, of relationships for that matter, because sexual attractions or relationship wise. So romantic attractions also plays a role.
Yeah.
So what are things okay and not okay in the relationship? Because love is such a thing which has been like, if you love me, you'll have sex with me. If you love me, you'll kiss me. That sort of thing goes very commonly in relationship.
Right.
And if we don't know much better, it
Mm.
will plays a role. So I think one of the man or one of the sessions we involved had that part also.
Mhm.
So we, based on that, we try to incorporate gender, and we said try to see things. I think one interesting part in that area for me as well is, first of all, I'm able to understand their field completely
Mm.
because it's completely new, whether it is government, whether it is with children, whether it is with some other field altogether. I'm able to understand that. And then based on that, how gender is playing role there. So it's like a new thing every time we work on that. Okay, gender is playing, oh, like this also. I never thought of, like, I have so many examples that I never thought of, that how gender can play a role here as well. So like that, the training manuals decide. I think one of the thing is, it's not decided like how long it will be or how short it will be. It basically depends upon what is the time limit, how long you want a training manual, for whom you want it. So if it is teenage kids,
Mm.
it will be a little different. If it is adults, it will be different. If are the people, there are people who are working within the field, it will be different. I think one of the training manuals we recently did was for disaster. So disaster response, let's say COVID, for that matter, let's say that an is example, or a lot of time recent examples of floods or droughts going on. So disaster is one of the things which has been increasing, and with climate change, global warming, that has been gonna keep increasing. So every time any disaster happens, disaster response situations are always to treat the immediate situations. So let's say there is a
Right.
flood. People are literally, running away from their home, figuring out a spot where they can at least have a shelter
Right.
and have something. They lost everything economically. Maybe they lost a member of their family members altogether. So at that time, what we do is immediately that bandage response. Okay, fine, there is a blood, there is a wound, we'll just put a band-aid on that.
Mm.
That's the disaster. We are not trying to understand what are the basic needs. Let's say there is a woman who is menstruating, who might experience endometriosis, and for her, experiencing disaster will be completely different.
Right.
At a times, the disaster kit does not even involve pads. Forget about endometriosis. I went ahead, too ahead. Even sanitary pads are not involved at a times, because at that time, food, clothes, or warm clothes altogether are something which is very much necessary than these things. Or the shelters which have been provided, immediate shelters after the disaster happens, some a lot of times are not at all sensitive and safe for women or other genders altogether. So that particular gender manual that we have developed was focusing on that how disaster itself can be also seen from gender view, and not just gender but intersectionality, let's say class, caste, religion, urban, rural background, all of those things. Like for example, if disaster hits in Mumbai
Mm.
and Sobo area for that matter, the relief we will get will be completely different than
Yes.
it will be hitting to like let's say Navi Mumbai or some outer sections of Mumbai altogether, which has been not, in terms of class, it has been differed very too much. So that was one of the manuals that we worked on. So we are also trying to see how different sectors are also seeing gender, because it's not something completely different or out of syllabus. All these things are
Mm.
interconnected, interlinked in that sense. So yeah, that's the training manual thing. And then we conduct the same trainings with them.
Right. So you mentioned about the garment factory, like you worked on a project there. So what were the observations that you made? Like that was clearly a gender inequality thing, like lack of bathrooms or unequal pay. Am I thinking of the right way, or are there deeper things that
I
get ignored?
I think these are the very common thing, not
Yeah.
just government. I think every sector has these sort of things.
Yeah.
Bathroom comes as a very first and prior altogether. At a times, wages also there.
Yes.
I think harassment, workplace harassment, that also involves in at times. But okay, these are like huge things. Everybody's talking about these things. The subtle sexism, I think we spoke about just before the thing started. One of the things is the not just garment. I mean, I'm generally telling you all the roles, even in that sense. The people who are working at the bottom, who are working as laborers, are women. 80% are formed of women, but the people who are on a manager role, moderator role, are men.
Mm.
Again, just talking about garment, it's also an understanding that women will be able to sew things better. they are a better stitchers or whatever that thing is. So women will be working on machines, but the people figuring out, okay, fine, this cloth goes with here, this, or managing the big slots or the orders and things will be men. Obviously men are also there on at that level, but the comparison is very less in that. So let's say 70-30
Mm.
in that thing. So the way things also work in that level, so subtle things goes on. At the same time, I think travel makes an issue at a times, because sometimes for men it's not about how it has been. So one of the things we also saw, that for a shift, any shift, any woman, let's say, I'm just keeping garment for a little while, and whatever examples I'm giving, that applies for many
Okay.
things. So every time we are forwarding right now the idea of we women, औरतें भी मर्दों के कंधे से कंधा मिला के काम कर
Mm.
रही हैं. That idea comes from a fact that women are also playing a bigger role, or a huge role, in the fields that were dominated by men. All sorts of field, that can be corporate world, that can be engineering, that can be teaching
Connectivity.
professions, all sorts of
Yeah.
things. But at the same time we forget to understand how women are doing it. So let's say if I have a 9 o'clock shift to join, and if I have a husband, two kids, in-laws, or whatever members in my family, I'll be waking up way too early to prepare for their breakfast, for their school, making them ready for school, for their lunches, everything I'll be taking care of. Then I'll be reaching my office, going through all the drama at the same time, and coming back thinking, okay, what should we make for dinner? About washing the utensils, washing the clothes, all sorts of things. So even that thing has been not covered. At a times, for specifically for, let's say, garment worker that we have studied in, travel time is like way too much. A lot of time they cannot take extra shifts. So sometimes, let's say these daily wage working, not just garment, but at the same time, let's say construction workers, for them daily wage matters, or the shift matters what they are doing, because the money based basis on that. They can't take an extra shift, because sometimes extra shift comes at the tight deadlines and all of that. And if they take extra shift, then there will be a violence at home, that you're coming late, you're not making this. That cannot be necessarily be physical violence or sexual violence, it can be emotional violence as well.
Right.
Just taunting them simply, like, you don't even care about your
Mm.
kids, they are the you're like just keeping them away, like let them learn on their own, or
Yeah.
you don't even care about your sick in-laws, or whatever that thing is. Even emotional violence matters a lot at that sense. So I think, looking at that, and even travel or transport violence that they might be facing, traveling alone in the night, where boys will be there, or people who might be abusing or looking in a certain way. We even now, like, I think I'm talking in terms of a lot of huge idea of different people, but for me also, a lot of time traveling at night, when the area is very silent, nobody's
Mm.
around, I'm way too scared to travel even now.
Yeah.
Though I have lived entire my lifetime in urban area where it has been safe and secure, but I can't. At a times, back of my mind is like, when am I reaching home safely without any problem altogether? So I think that conscious thing is always going on. I think one time I've done is, the cab person was very suspicious and I was way too scared.
Mm.
My phone was dead. I randomly called a friend and I'm just pretending to talk to a friend, saying that, okay, I'm, reaching from here to here, I'm here, and this, like, I have shared my location just for my own safety, or like, I don't know what difference does that thing make, but for my own thing, that, okay, fine, this is the way I feel. Obviously, that person felt suspicious but did not do anything, but that was another thing altogether. I think that internal idea of safety that has been built
Yeah.
in is completely different. So, yeah, a lot of time that happens.
That's so true. I mean, and like these ideas, people don't understand unless you go through that experience. So as an outsider, it's very easy to judge. Arey, to kya hua?
Exactly.
Misunderstanding हो रही है. It's what you feel in that
Exactly.
moment, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And speaking of
True.
things that you don't understand as outsiders, you have observed closely the lives of devdasis while working on a project for their children. So can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I think one of the things of Devdas, I think we know how it started and how it was.
Hmm.
Initially, it was started as a really in a thing where women will be devoted to
Yeah.
gods. They'd be dancers, singers all together. But slowly things changes, and the exploitation also made a huge things. Now with the law, Devdasi, that whole ceremony has been banned.
Right.
You can't do it officially. Obviously, yes, but at the same time, I think the mindset is very difficult. Just because the law came, the mindset does not change of people.
True.
I think by the time I started working, the that thing like offering women to God. I think that openly has been stopped. So I never actually saw that. And the project I'm working in are working with their children. So I think it started as a part of working with Devdasi children, but soon after it's not just Devdasi girl childs, but at the same time marginalized girl childs or
Mhm.
underprivileged girl childs
Right.
who are not able to get it. So I think that project has been developed from that ways. At currently, by the time I started, so 15 years back, Visthar started working with at project called Bandhavi.
Okay.
So having a bond between kids and learning towards, and it was for the kids of Devdasi children at initially when it started. Slowly, they also incorporated people of migrant children of migrant work and girl children of migrant workers and under marginalized communities altogether or vulnerable communities altogether based on their class, caste, other things. I think I don't have a direct exposure to the communities at that time because by the time I started working, it
Mm.
has been the offering has been stopped altogether. But the idea how it has been going on, at the way you view or see certain people or certain sector does not change. So I think the way I was working with children,
Mm.
so I think one of the things we kind of assume based on our birth background, like let's say my if my parents are uh, let's say my father is a judge and my mother is CA or working in a bank.
Okay.
Just because my parents' profession is so wow, it will be understood that I will be an intelligent child as well,
Mm.
and I'll be working in education and doing it. At the same time, when you talk about laborers or Devdasi children, it has been assumed that they don't know anything and their fate is written by God. So whatever happens in their life or the violence they go through will be written like that. I think that idea, Bandhavi is changing. So Bandhavi is a project where children come there, they stay there till their 10th standard. So that's a shelter home, like
Okay.
living community, and they go to a nearby school also. At the same time, it's not just school or staying capacity or staying away from the things, but also they are conducting multiple sessions for them with respect to gender, with respect to their own rights, their own identities, and the kids itself. Like when I work with the kids, I can have actual grown up discussion with the kids and their understanding of issues altogether. So that whole understanding that okay fine, these are the kids from marginalized communities, they might not know these things or what's the point to talk about it. It's not that we just have to see them as kids itself who are capable of growing, who are capable of understanding things, how it is growing altogether. One of the things with Devdasi, in general idea I can tell you about is how things are working in terms of power equation. So slowly, obviously, as I said, initially it was of many Devdasi women are there as excellent dancers and
Mm.
singers all together. But recently, when the things started coming, like as the year passes on, it became of a particular caste. Women will be devoted there.
Okay.
They will be always living in the poverty. Their kids will not get a proper thing. Obviously, they do not have a husband's name altogether. At the same time, when Vistar started working there, there was a question that how we can change it, how we can do it, because the people from dominant class caste were opposing that. It took a while to just get on the board and thinking it, because at the same time, like when we were talking about the privilege in that sense, because if we are talking about getting them equal rights, getting them at the same path as you are, that means your power, your privileges are gonna reduce, are
Right.
not gonna stay as equal as you're getting, and nobody wants that.
Right.
If my life is as comfortable as it is, why should I leave those things? Obviously that
Mm.
won't work. But at the same time, how it has been structured, so I think that initial slash was there, but I think slowly they were able to get on board. I won't say 100%, but at least work in progress how it is going on. Even simply like let's say talk about even our women thing. So in the house, if you talk about boys and
Mm.
girls, boys will be getting a little bit more privileges than
Yes.
girls. And if we are talking about girls getting aware, girls getting talking about their rights, and girls getting freedom, at the same time, balls, that privilege is going to reduce. So that equation, when it's happening, I don't want to reduce my privilege. I don't want to give off my luxurious thing or whatever. Like, simple example:
Mm.
husband and wife both are working, both comes home,
Yeah.
wife goes straight to kitchen, husband goes on sofa, like, can I get some tea, I had a very tiring day, and wife will be like cooking tea, getting tea, and
Yeah.
getting it there. Obviously, if you tell that husband that you are not going to get tea or water or food when you
Mm.
are sitting, you have to work in the
Right.
kitchen. Obviously, he does not want to do that at this, like, very quick thing. So it has to start work in the, I think, very base initial thing itself. So yeah.
Mm. To working towards gender equality, it's always going to be a work in progress, right? But sometimes when I
Yeah.
look at people who are working here on these projects on ground level, they're so passionate and they put in so much hard work. Generally, when people like me, we need to see the result every day कि अरे जो भी मैं कर रही हूँ कुछ ना कुछ तो आउटपुट निकल रहा है यार. Anyone, like if you're working in a factory, your garment is getting produced or your balance sheet is getting tired after I'm passing so many entries in books. So, what is your field is very much intangible in that sense. So, how do you measure success or progress? Because it's very intangible. You're changing people at their thought level. So, how do you measure what is success for you? Like,
Okay, I think that's a very interesting, at the same time very thought-provoking question.
yeah.
Yes, I think here we can't actually measure success. So, for example,
Mhm.
if I'm working, when I was a teacher, let's say, I obviously everybody works way too hard to do that, and there are steps also. So, from an assistant professor, I'll become associate professor
Mhm.
or to professor levels. Based on that, I'll get some credits. My salary will be increased. So, those are kind of steps of success I might be able to achieve here. I think in this field, it's very different altogether. For me, I think I've stopped putting those things as a, there might be some benchmarks to put as my growth or something. I've stopped that because I realized one thing. The moment you start thinking that, okay, fine, we reached somewhere, there's something or the other happens, then you think, oh, okay, that's not, that we can't say as gender equality. So I think I'll give a basic understanding of gender itself as first, and then I'll talk about my understanding
Okay.
of success altogether.
Mhm.
I don't think when we say we are working towards gender equality, it's very difficult because right now the work we are doing is band-aid work. So let's say we talk about gender-based violence or harassment at public places or at workplaces,
Mhm.
and we try to work on that, or we try to understand about child marriage or child labor. So we try to work on those things, but we don't actually try to work on the understanding of people itself. So basic example, major example, all of us have experienced is during the lockdown. Till lockdown, everything is going fine. Okay, till the lockdown is announced, everything is fine. Women are working, women are equal, all of those things, at least we understand the picture, that it is all nice. As soon as lockdown hits, 5 to 6 months, not even five, like just 1 month within it, multiple cases of domestic
Domestic violence.
violence, emotional violence has been increased, rooftop increased altogether. It does not mean that whatever work we have done, it gone to the waste. It means that we haven't done actual to the basis,
Yeah. Right.
because women, majority of the women we spoke to after the lockdown said, at least before lockdown, the same things were happening, but at least we were away from home for
Sometime.
some time in a day. Here we are bound, we can't even go outside the door, and we are tend to have that thing. Again, during the lockdown, a lot of things have, like, again, huge, the emotional violence, physical violence has been faced. But at the same time, basic thing, women's work from home. So women's work from home, for the family members, has been assumed that their work is kitchen work. हाँ, तेरा मीटिंग है ना, चल जाएगा, we can just skip it for a little while, focus on that first,
Mm.
then you can do it. But for boys, it was like, even while they are, let's say they are having a meeting, while even walking there, you will be like, oh, is there a meeting going on? Should I walk there or should not? Kind of thing. But if a woman's meeting is going on, we won't even care. We'll be like, go to kitchen, do this, whatever that thing is.
Mm.
So for women experiencing that, so what happened is, throughout when we were working, we actually focused on the symptoms of gender inequalities. of what women are experiencing. Just not women, let's say boys for that matter. Yeah, like I've seen a lot of boys who are giving up on their aspiration just because they have to support their family
Mm.
economically. So there are people who wants to be do their masters or do some higher studies and spend
Yes.
time explore things, but they, as soon as they finish their undergraduation, they have to start working to earn money. Or at the same time, there are boys who do not want to be strong physically or mentally, or to be a protector role. At the same time, we need to understand boys themselves want protection, emotional support,
Yes.
and we kind of closed that door for boys altogether, saying that you cannot cry. We are like literally closing one emotion for them altogether. That's so
Yeah.
inhuman towards them. So it's not just women, obviously, men also, but at the same time, the degrees
Yeah.
varies based on the privileges. So what happened is we started working on the symptoms, but didn't nobody went to the roots of it. So nobody actually talks about patriarchy. People are talking, but it's not happening way too much. Let's say some things like Roe and Wade. Um,
The abortion
sorry,
in the US. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, the abortion rights going on recently. Like it's been a huge struggle for women there, and they are talking about it, and they are able to get their rights on their body. And suddenly, sometimes somebody comes and say like, "No, you are not gonna get it." Where are we standing at that point? And here, like when usually the thing starts in 2022, women are still facing that thing. It's not about whether women are facing or not facing, it's about how we are approaching those things at
Mm.
the same time. So what we are doing is we are approaching the symptoms but not at the roots. So the mindset change is will take forever to do that. I think again, even the women's movement for that matter, 60s, 17, 80s, all the women's movement and the people who were involved in women's movement were saying the points we are talking now about equal wages, about safe and secure travel, and all the workplaces. The same points they were talking, and they were seeing some progress at that time. But as soon as the globalization hits, thing goes down, and we are again on the same track. So it's very dicey. You can't actually say the things are there or not. So in that terms, just because you, frankly speaking, I have no idea when I'll be able to say that, there is no woman, at least let's say, forget about India, forget about world, even Mumbai, there is no woman who is experiencing domestic violence or gender-based violence in any place. I don't know when I'll be able to say or whether I'll be able to say or not. But at least, so the idea of success, when I take some session and I'm not even seeing completely change of thought process, because it's conditioning of years. You can't change it in one day or
Yes.
2 days. I realized it very soon. But at least when you see that expression that people are thinking, it's not easy. At the same time, when somebody gets the idea, oh, this is not good, this is something very bad, unjust, people start thinking about it, they come up with so many questions. And that's, you get to know that they're trying to understand it. I think for me that becomes as a part of my success at the time. So for me, I try to get those things within my day-to-day life or my trainings or sessions. When somebody asks and comes and they ask me certain question which I don't have answer, obviously I don't have answers to all the questions, even I'm learning in the process. But at least when I start having that kind of conversation, for me, I think that's something I'm able to talk about, to work towards it.
Mhm.
Uh, I have seen a lot of college students who are doing it. I've seen a lot of old men, like men my father's age or my grandfather's age, coming to me and talking to about me, about their daughters or their granddaughters, and how it they have been seen till now, and how they are struggling with their ideas. Because it's like, okay, it's very easy for me, even at a times, even recently, let's say, I'll give you example.
Mm.
1 year back,
Okay.
I'm working in gender. It's not completely. I was been part of it on and off altogether. There was some form I was filling in, and they asked family members' name in that form. The first name, guess whom I would have put there? My father's. Because
Yeah.
irrespective how much my mother struggles and works hard to take care of the family, the ultimate thing comes as to my mind unconsciously was my father. I didn't realize it the moment I put it. I was like, what am I doing? Why it should be my father only? That question arises at the same time. So I think a lot of things are unconsciously I'm doing. It's just 20 years, 25 years of my conditioning, but it's thousands of years of understanding of patriarchy that has been perpetuating in these 20
Mm.
years for me. So I think working towards that is going to be struggle. But at the same time, if you're saying, so we have a base and you are saying that base is wrong, so what should be the answer? What should be the alternative to those things? We don't have answers. So we are saying, let's figure it out, let's do it. And that becomes more uncertain and struggling. A lot of people, even to me. Like, for example, if I say, fine, don't work here, in general thing, don't invest in these particular stocks, the market is not good for them, invest. So we need to give some alternative, na?
Right.
Invest in these stocks, this is better. But we don't have that here. If we are saying patriarchy is not good, then what is good? We are also struggling to figure that out. I'm giving just one recommendation. There is a YouTube series called Men's World. I don't know
Yeah.
whether you have watched it or not. It'll be really good to watch. It's a very short one, four episode things, 20 minutes, that actually talks about matriarchy and if matriarchy is there, how it will work.
Yeah.
I'm not in support of matriarchy. I'm not saying that matriarchy should be there at all, because it's a power role of obviously power play.
Yes.
If patriarchy is giving power to men, matriarchy will give it to women. We don't want that either. We
Mm.
want it, we want to see it at equal. But yeah, and it's not like something which will be quickly changed. The subtle changes are way too difficult to even decide to. So yeah, I think the intangible success are, so let's say small successes for me, I've been categorizing them. So smaller ones, when people I'm able to see and communicate with people in that basis, that is one. Second, if I have a good session to go ahead with. Third, I think one of the things I started doing it because I, so let's face it, like if you are working in this field, it's not easy in terms of your mental health altogether,
Right.
because it's not something they are just talking about the world. You are actually questioning yourself, your whole basis altogether, and that's not good for yourself. Like your body and your mind is like, I'm done, I can't take any more. So I think for me, at times I'm making sure that mental health also, so when I'm able to make sure that my mental health as well as my physical work are both on equal lines, that also a good success day for me altogether.
That was a great podcast, Raj, and I just want to wish you that more power to you. But I hope that 10 years later we'll not be discussing the same things. We would have made some progress.
hoping to
That's my hope for you and
hoping
I.
to, but
Yeah.
let's stop. And thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
It's really nice to have a conversation and share a lot of things with you. Like it's just super good.
Yeah, and we didn't even do any scripting or it was just very spontaneous, and I love talking to you about this. Thank you for being here.
Same here, same here. Thank you so
Okay.
much for inviting me, and it was lovely being here.